Brainstorms are a very important tool in Weiss Schwarz. They provide milling, card advantage, selectivity, and an easy way to pay stock every turn. But there are many different brainstorms, and if you're trying to build your own deck, you probably ask yourself at least once, which brainstorm should I run? In this video, we'll go through the different brainstorm effects from best to worst, then their different costs, and how it will affect your gameplay, and finally explore some decisive parameters to choosing your brainstorm. So first, let's go through the different brainstorm effects. The best one is the Salvage Brainstorm. Its main role is to help you look your climax combo. So for instance, if you play 3 level 1 characters with a climax combo, on the next turn your opponent is going to reverse them and they're going to go to the waiting room, then using your brainstorm, you might be able to salvage some of them and replay your combo. The about great thing about Salvage Brainstorm is that you can check all of your waiting room, so see what you could potentially salvage before committing the action, and you can also choose cards that you just mill from the brainstorm. So if the card that you really wanted was not in waiting room, then there is some chance that you mill it and can salvage it anyway. The only problem you can have is that when you try to brainstorm with only one card in deck, you refresh the deck, and if you hit more climaxes than targets that you can salvage, so for instance, you mill 1 Kara, but then you mill 3 climaxes, you only get to salvage 1 card. So it's a bit sad, it's some climaxes that got wasted. The second best effect is searching. So just as salvage is great selectivity, you can get what you want from your deck, but it has a few problems. First, you can mill what you actually wanted. So if you wanted to get your climax combo, but you milled it during the brainstorm, and there are no more copies in the deck, then you're sad. The second, if you're playing a deck with a lot of events, after milling with the brainstorm, you might notice that you don't have enough targets in the deck. And lastly, you cannot loop your climax combo without refreshing first, since the characters that you want are still in waiting room. Also, in some sets, you're actually restricted on which character trait you can get. Salvage brainstorms are usually more universal. For number 3, we have the top check tree. So whenever you hit a climax, you get to check up to 3 cards on top of your deck and put 1 in your hand. So it's pretty powerful because you can choose climaxes and events with this, so it's great to actually loop your combo. It's also good because it's also going to mill your deck a lot more. So let's say you use a brainstorm salvage and hit 3 climaxes, then in the end you only remove 4 cards out of your deck, but with the top check tree, you can top check 3 times this way, so you mill 4 from the brainstorm and 9 from the effect, so for a total of 13. So whenever you hit a lot with these brainstorms, you can instantly choose to go closer to your refresh. Its main problem is that it's low selectivity. You only get to choose between 3 cards, so if you needed to have exactly a level 3 or your climax combo, you might need to get lucky to get actually what you want. This kind of brainstorm is usually run as a secondary brainstorm, so that you have a way to get climaxes. Next up we have the draw 2 discard 1. So this one is a bit more rare. It can be okay to use for decks that have gold bar and bounce, where you might need to discard a lot of climaxes, but then you're starting to have selectivity problems. In the same family, we have the draw 1 brainstorms, and nowadays they usually just give it to trial decks. Most constructed decks don't want to play these. They need to have a super good secondary effect, like Coco in the Kanata Marine deck, where she gives your early Kanata more power, but then it means that when you build your deck, you're going to need to put a lot of endfix to compensate for what the brainstorm isn't giving you. And the last 3 ones don't see play anymore. These are things from the past, when card advantage wasn't such a big priority. So we have brainstorm that interact with the board. For instance, this Misaka from Reagan can send an abundance cost 0 character from the stage to waiting room for every climax that you hit. And these kind of effects were relevant when we still had 1-0 with a lot of power, like in Girlfriend Meta or Sunlight Voice, and you had no other good solution to remove them. Then we have the burn brainstorms. It fits very few decks, because why would you pay for a random chance to burn when you could play a level 3 that does that for granted? So it's only worth playing when you know that you're going to use it 2 or 3 times in the game, and that you're going to play a level 3 board that isn't going to move, so you don't have any space to play a level 3s for that. It's pretty rare. And lastly, there used to be brainstorm that gave soul and power, but once again, why would you pay resources for a random chest to get that, when you could just play another card that does this effect for guaranteed? So that's it for the different effects. Now I'm going to look on the different costs that can have a brainstorm. So the best one, pay 1, self-tap. If you want to boost an alt set, you give them a self-tap. Like Sword Art Online, they used to only have tap 2 brainstorms, and having the self-tap was just so much better. It means that you can play 2 of them in the back row, and play 2 brainstorms in a turn if you want to, and it's just a 1 card commitment, contrary to the pay 1 tap 2 brainstorms. When you have to play a tap 2 brainstorm, you often get into awkward situations, where if you brainstorm, you are gambling and hitting, else you rested another character, and you might not have 3 attacks, especially at level 0. They can become okay to use if the second character that you are resting can sack itself or bounce itself to make space on the board. This is particularly true for standby decks. It can also be okay when you plan to attack with the Brainstorm, and so this way you just rest your 2 back rows and you attack with it. The main problem is that the Brainstorm is likely to get reversed, so you don't get to use it on the next turn unless you get another copy of the Brainstorm. Then you have the pay 1 Brainstorms. So because you don't need to raise the character, you can just spam it. You can do it as many times as you want, as long as you can pay. But for every card you get out of it, you'll have to discard 1 card. So these are not making any card advantage. Because of that, they are usually bad, and at best, they're played as a one-off, for emergencies where you are completely free or you have a climax super deep in your stock. Recently, they give this kind of effect to level 0s with combo climaxes, like Chainsaw Man Simeno, that got on the ban list, or Project Sekai Goldbar. And lastly, this is more rare, but the Brainstorm that just rest themselves and ask you to sacrifice a character from stage to waiting room are pretty strong in decks that build a lot of end size. It also means that you can play a level 0 utilitary for its come-in play effect or for its Brainstorm for instance, and then you can just play this Brainstorm, sacrifice it, and get more meal and potentially more card advantage. I think these are super comfy to play as a 1 or 2 off. So we went through the different effects and costs, but there are other things that you need to consider. So most Brainstorm will mill 4 cards, but there are some Brainstorms that mill 5 cards, and these are super good. It increases your probability to hit a climax, it's more milling, and you might not feel the difference on one Brainstorm, but when you repeat it 3 or 4 times over the game, you really feel the difference. But these ones are most of the time restricted to some specific decks, like they need to hit a precise type of climaxes, or they search for a bad threat in the set. There are also some Brainstorms that actually don't need to hit the climax. For instance, in Zombieland Saga, the Sakura will salvage for every of the event Revenge and Fate that you hit, which is an event that you can play 7 copies of in your deck. So sometimes this is a package that you can think of putting in your deck. And lastly, level 1 Brainstorms are worse than level 0 Brainstorms. Being level 1 means that you need the color, so it puts restriction on your build options, and if you cancel a lot on level 0, that means that you cannot use a Brainstorm to try to get hand. You have to find some other way. So now that you know all the nuances, let's answer the question. Which Brainstorm should you run? So if your set has one, 90% of the time, just run a self-tap salvage Brainstorm, and put all of them in your back row. These are the best for selectivity, for looping climax, they don't have any problem, and it's no surprise that almost all of the top deck in BSF right now are choosing a self-tap Brainstorm. Next, if you have a Brainstorm with a dedicated synergy with the rest of your deck, then probably run this one. So you have the Coco in Kanata Marine, so that you can boost the Kanata, you have the Brainstorm that have a combo climax, or for instance the Oriflow Eta Brainstorm 5. If you are running an 8 salvage deck, then just run this one. It's probably one of the main reasons you're playing this deck anyway, so that you can have a better Brainstorm. Also, try to have a good balance between searching in your deck and salvaging with your handfix tools. For instance, in Zombieland Saga, the Junko Climax combo has a discard 1 salvage, and it bounces itself when it gets frontal attacked, so you don't need to salvage her. So because you already have a good way to salvage, then the Search Brainstorm is the best option. Also, they share the same color, so it's just more convenient. This is one case where you want to actually play a Search Brainstorm instead of a salvage one. It depends on the deck, but most of the time it's okay to have a main Brainstorm at 3 or 4 copies, and the secondary Brainstorm at 1 or 2 copies. Nowadays, the secondary Brainstorm is usually the top check free one, as a way to get climaxes. And the main Brainstorm would be a Search, a Salvage one, or a Combo Climax Brainstorm. And lastly, maybe ask yourself the question, do I even need to run a Brainstorm? Some of the recent decks don't even have a Brainstorm, because they have a Resonance card. Like the Key All-Star deck, or Konosuba Magic. These are pay 1, res this, show a card in your hand, and then you can top check free attack a card. So they have the same role as Brainstorm, card advantage, milling, selectivity. But instead of having a random chance of not hitting, not getting any climaxes, these are a guaranteed +1. Unless you reveal 3 climaxes, of course. So all of this to say, don't think absolutely, I need to play a Brainstorm. First, you want your cards to feel roles, so that your deck can play fluidly. If you want to know all of the elements that make a good Weiss Schwarz deck, I have a video on this in this channel. Thank you for watching.